It's fine. Now it is. Now
Okay.
it's fine.
So now.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so basically start out like what did you hold on.
How did I get started?
Yeah, that's what I want to ask.
Well, it was wartime.
It doesn't
Is
matter.
it going?
Yeah,
It was wartime.
but you have to look
Mom,
into the...
you can't. Yeah, now she has to start over because I can't cut that out.
Okay, start over.
So go ahead.
And we had gone to Washington, state of Washington, and to work in the war plant. And all my neighbors where I lived was working. And I felt bored because I wasn't, so I decided to go to work. Well, I didn't know how I was gonna end up, but anyway, I went in and I started to help. I worked doing inventory to start with, got rid of all the inventory, and then they decided that I was a good worker, so I guess they put me to work. So I started working in the riveting and where they did all the drilling and stuff like that. And we had I can't think what to call it, but it was like a help. We were doing some work for Boeing aircraft, and we were working on what they call the wing spars. That's like the skeleton of the wing, that they built the wing around that they added to the plane. So we were working on that. Well, at first I was working as a drill press operator. That was kind of boring, but it was fun. And then we decided, 3 or 4 of us girls decided we wanted to be riveters. So we went to the boss and he said, no, women couldn't do that. Well, it happened to be a closed shop, so they had to let us try. According to the union, they had to at least let us try. So we did try. All 4 of us tried, and we all 4 passed. So all 4 of us got to be riveters. And it was kind of unusual because 2 of the wing spars, like on the left side and the right side, you had to rivet with your left hand. And 2 of us in this 4 were left-handed. So they worked on the left side. The other 2 of us were right-handed, so we worked on the right side. It worked out just perfect. Anyway, we passed and we got to be riveters. So we were making the whole sum of $1.20 an hour. That was a lot of money for us. But it was good work. It was kind of fulfilling to know that you were doing something to help, that we were helping the war effort. And that's the way I got started.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasted probably, I think I started in about early 45 or late 44. I'm not sure just when the year was, but I worked probably about 1.5 years as a riveter.
Cool. What's a closed shop?
What's a closed shop? What's a closed shop?
Yes, a closed shop is everybody belongs to the union. Nobody can work there unless they're a union worker. That's called a closed shop.
Okay.
You can't work there unless you belong to the union.
Okay. How were you treated? Were you treated the same as everyone else, or
yes. There was no discrimination of any kind.
Besides the
I'll
fact
tell
that
you a little story about one discrimination. It was really kind of funny. It was 2 people, a couple, man and his wife, and they always worked. They put them kind of over in a corner. I don't know really what they did, but they were kind of in a corner area by themselves. We found out afterwards when we got close enough, it was because they were both eating garlic, and nobody could be too close to them. But it worked out. They really didn't discriminate. They just gave them a job where they could work by themselves.
Well, you were discriminated against, sort of, because you were a woman, and they wouldn't let you be a riveter unless...
Oh, well, that was because of strength. See, they had A riveters and B riveters, and we were B riveters, and you didn't rivet anything over 1/4 of an inch. But when you got up to the 1/2 and the full inch, that was the men, because the guns that you used to rivet with were heavier.
What is a rivet? I don't know what that is.
A rivet is a little thing about, in diameter, would be like about your little finger. That was about the biggest riveter we had. And it was probably about anywhere from 1/4 inch to maybe a 1/2 inch long. And it was rounded on one side and flat on the other. just perfectly flat. And you had a hole. Then the object you were working on, there was a little hole there, and you knew what the size of that hole was, so you used the size rivet that would fit in that hole.
Gotcha.
Well, it went through the hole, but then, you know, what are you going to do on the other side? So we had, each one of us had what they called a bucker, B-U-C-K-E-R, bucker. And she had a bar, a heavy bar, like, I don't think it was iron, I think they were heavy, kind of like a iron bar, but you couldn't bend it or break it or dent it or anything like that. So she would stand on the other side of this rivet that you stuck in the hole. She would stand there with this bar against the rivet, and you had a gun, and when you turned that on, it shook like this, and it pushed that rivet into that bar and flattened it out so that there wasn't any chance of it coming unscrewed or anything like that, see. It was a flat piece, and it just kind of folded out.
And what did it do?
It held the rivet. In other words, it was like you're screwing something together.
Oh.
There was pieces there that you had to have. I don't know really what they did, but I know they helped hold things together.
Okay.
It's like, in other words, like for where you'd use a screw or a nail or something like that, you used a rivet.
I see.
So, so like after the war, like after you finished, were you treated like differently than you were like?
Did you gain respect?
Did you gain more respect because you
were a riveter?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so. We were just part of the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
we
like,
weren't treated bad, and we weren't treated any special.
Right. But you still were like a woman, like you still like, I don't know how to describe it. You were still like women weren't supposed to work. You were supposed to take care of the family, you know?
Oh, well, that at that time during that war,
that's what I'm talking about.
You were almost expected to work. You didn't have to, of course, but it was, to me, it was a pleasure to get out and help.
Right.
And I think most all women felt that way. They were doing their part for the war.
Do you think that led up to like where we are now, like how women are in the workforce? Or
I think it helped. Yeah, they began to see that women could do things.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were helpless housekeepers.
Yeah.
We could actually get out and do like the men did.
And
there were a lot of things that women did during the war that they would have never gotten a chance to do otherwise.
Like what?
Well, people that worked for the telephone company, they could climb a pole like a man could. And they looked on us like women were just housekeepers, you know.
Right.
We weren't supposed to get out in the world. Well, we showed them we could get out in the world and do just what they did.
I see.
And that's, I think, that plays a big part on like the whole, like,
where we are
process itself, because like now we aren't, like, if you guys, Rosie the Riveters, had never existed, you know, like women wouldn't be where we are today, because we wouldn't have that.
You wouldn't have women police officers.
Right.
You wouldn't have women firemen. You wouldn't have women coming to fix your telephone.
Right.
It would all be men. But that kind of turned the tide.
Right.
Because they found out women could do things outside of the home.
That's cool. So what time did you have to get up?
What time did I get up?
Like, for your job. Like,
Oh, well then I think it was probably about 6 o'clock, because we had to be to work at 7.
Oh, okay.
How late did you work?
How much?
How late did you work each day?
I think it was 4 or 4:30 was when we got off.
That's not bad.
I can't remember for sure, but it was around evening time, you know, early evening.
How many people were in the plant?
Oh, golly. Well, I would say anywhere 100 to 150.
And what was the percentage of women?
About half, over half.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Yeah, it was about over half of the women.
And how long did you do it? How many years? Or
about a year and a half.
A year and a half?
Because I didn't work at it when I first went to work. See, we went out there in 42, in the summer of 42, and I think I went to work. Well, we lived out in Carnation for the first year, and there was no way I could go to work and live out there. So when we moved into the projects, where they had projects built like they have here, you know, for Offutt, why, when we moved there, we had to move into the project, because, of course, there was no place else to live. Well, like I said, all the women around me were working. And I was bored to death with nothing to do. I didn't have television, didn't have radio, didn't have a telephone, didn't have nothing. So you went to work.
Right.
So I worked about a year and a half, because then as soon as the war was over, well, then that was the end of it. Then
And then you went back home, right? You went back home to take care of your, like, the family. Did you just go back home?
Yeah.
Afterward? Yeah.
Yeah, well then, shortly after that we came back to Nebraska. See, we were living in Washington.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that next.
And we came back to Nebraska in 1946.
What's that noise?
What noise?
Oh.
What is that?
I don't know.
What do you hear?
A buzz.
See me.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Oh, I know what it is.
No, just leave that there. Just leave it
Okay.
on. It's fine. I can cut it.
There you go.
There we go. I was going to say this. There we go.
I was going to say that noise was so
That
loud.
thing's still going?
Yeah. I can cut the video, Grandma. I can
Oh.
upload it, and I can just cut it.
Okay.
So.
Well, anyway, I was cooking rice. I know. And it was done. I thought, Buzz, what Buzz? Okay. So what else you want to know?
Yeah, so you were living in Washington?
Washington, state of Washington.
So, yeah, okay. Who were you living with?
We was living by ourselves in a house.
Who?
Who? My husband and my 2 kids.
I didn't know.
Yeah, my husband, I had 2 kids. One was,
Well, I know who your
one
kids
was
are.
about 10, the other one was about 6.
And the one that was about 6 was...
You're my
Grandma.
Your grandma.
I know. I know that one. And the other one,
Yeah.
Of Uncle Gary.
yeah.
Okay.
I know that.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I don't think I have anything else.
What do you remember most about... What do you remember most about being out in Washington and being a riveter? Tell us about one of your, like, what's your most...
Memorable experience.
Your most memorable experience of working in the plant.
Well, that was the time when everything was, you couldn't get in everything, what do they call it, everything was rationed.
Yeah.
Ration,
Yeah.
whatever. And you had ration books,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call them. So everything you bought almost had to have a ration ticket, whether it was butter, or bananas, or toilet paper, or cigarettes. You were only allowed so many.
Yeah.
And you know, at that time, in fact, I never did smoke. And I was a very popular person during the war because I could buy cigarettes and give them to whoever needed them. I bought them for them. I didn't pay for them.
Oh.
So yeah, well, you don't smoke. Would you buy me cigarettes? I was buying cigarettes all the time. I could use all my ration stamps for cigarettes so I could give them away.
Oh.
That's smart, though.
Yeah, when they found out you didn't use them, boy, you were popular because somebody wanted to use them.
I see.
What about war bonds? Did you buy any war bonds?
Oh, I bought oodles of war bonds. Yeah, I did.
How many would you say?
Well, I think I had several $1,000s worth of them.
Holy cow.
And that was one way I got to come back home, was through my war bonds. Because my husband was kind of well, he wasn't very thrifty, we'll say that.
Mhm.
If he had money, he liked to spend it.
Yeah.
And if I had money, I liked to save it.
Mhm.
So we didn't get along too well in that category. But anyway, so when we got ready to come back to Nebraska, we didn't have a lot of money, but I had those war bonds.
Yeah.
And of course you had to save them. I think you had to have them 60 days before you could cash them in.
Mhm.
But you could cash them in after 60 days. Most of them I didn't cash in, I kept them. But when we came back to Nebraska, we didn't have a lot of money.
Mhm.
So we brought a fellow with us that was going to get off in Montana,
Mhm.
because we drove back. And he was going to get off in Montana, and he was supposed to help pay for the trip. Well, we had a little misunderstanding in Montana someplace, and he went his way and we started on ours. So naturally, we began to run out of money.
Yeah.
So when we got to North Platte, we were broke. We didn't have money for gas, food, or nothing. So we had to sit in North Platte until after 9 o'clock when the banks opened, so we could cash in one of our war bonds in order to get gas and groceries to come home.
Oh my goodness.
So that's how you got home, basically.
That's
how you got home,
That's
basically.
how I got home.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
It's crazy.
We drove in the evening. It was probably about 4 or 5 o'clock, and we went to my husband's brother. You remember May and Clyde?
Uh-huh.
Well, we went to their house because they lived on just right off of Ames, on about 34th, somewhere along in there. So we ended up at their house, and that way we had a house that we had in Omaha, and we had it rented out during the war, just people that had rented from us earlier, and they were very nice people, and we had give them enough notice that we were coming back, you know, so they'd have time to find a house. So we had a home to go to. We didn't have to stay with anybody, and a little money to get along on. Since our house was paid for, we didn't have to make house payments. And I was going to tell you something else. Forgot what it was now. But anyway, like I said, we had enough. Oh, then we applied for unemployment.
Yeah.
Both my husband and I both applied for unemployment. Well, he didn't like sitting around the house. He wanted to be busy.
Yeah.
So he went to work. So he didn't get much unemployment. But I drew it for about, well, I guess a couple of years. I drew unemployment. A whole sum of $26 a week.
Okay.
It went a long ways then.
Yeah.
Don't go so far today, but it did then.
Yeah. What did your husband do?
But he was a molder.
Yeah.
That's working in an iron where they melt iron and make things. That's what he done. They called it molding. But they melted. They had temperatures, you know, way up in the thousands. So this stuff would melt. And then they had plans of, you know, things, what do you call them, that you make a mold out of it. You make a mold. You have a mold, and you pour this stuff, this hot iron into that mold.
Yeah.
And it makes what you
want. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, that was his. When we, well, I shouldn't say this, but when we first got married, he was driving a taxi.
I won't put that in the video, don't worry.
No, he had all kinds of odd jobs before he finally got to be a molder. But
So there were actually only 4 women who said, I want to be a riveter in the plant? And
that's
you guys,
all I know of.
And you guys started it?
And we did. We started it.
I'll be darned.
And we worked once we got in, we kept the same job until the war was over.
I'll be darned.
So they didn't want us to, you know, like I said, they didn't want women. They didn't think we could do it. They thought it was too heavy a job. But we were all young, you know, in our 30s, 20s and 30s, and we were all young and strong. So we showed them we could do it.
I'll be darned.
Cool.
I didn't realize that.
All right. I don't think I have any more. I think I'm done. That's pretty good.
As I said, Grandma, what other stories do you have?
Any more?
Can't think of any right now.
I was always going to come down and videotape you and have your life story put on video.
Here. Ready?